in this video, I'm going to show you how to work with the free transform mode of Adobe Photoshop. Now friends, this is going to be a little different than the transform selection option that we have. Transform selection is actually an intermediate level topic. That's the reason I have decided not to include this in my beginners video. So in this video, I'm going to be focusing on the free transform. I'll be talking about the different options that we have in free transform, like skew, rotate, distort, perspective, all of those. And also I'm going to be talking about the different options, the different tips and techniques that I have learned working with this awesome mode. So I've decided this image, this I think is a good image to work on. So friends, whenever you want to get into the free transform mode, you always have to remove the background lock, because if you go to edit, you can see that the transform option is not available. That's because we are working on a background layer. So you can either duplicate the layer or you can actually remove the background lock. So I prefer to remove it. Hold on the Alt key and do a double click on this, and that's gonna take care of that. Press Ctrl T and you'll see that you get this bounding box across around your image. This indicates that you have entered the free transform mode. One other way to do is to go to the edit menu and click on this option right here. Now it is very important to understand that the proper layer is selected. Sometimes friends, when you are working on something, you'll be having tons and tons of layers, right? So it is very important that you select the proper layer and then press Ctrl T, otherwise you'll be making a mess of your work. Now free transform mode is used pretty much everywhere: photo manipulations, web design, concept art, graphic design. So it's used pretty much everywhere, and this is something that you just have to learn, right? This is the fundamentals of Photoshop. So press Ctrl T to get to that. And a lot of people do this. This is actually a little bad habit, because they go to edit, like once they have entered the free transform mode, they go to the edit menu, transform, and they take options from here. What you can actually do is, once you have entered the free transform mode, you can just do a right click and take all these different options. The same options are available over here. So this actually saves you a lot of time. You don't have to go to an edit menu and take the different options from there. So for example, say I want to select warp. I can just do a right click, take warp, and just make changes to my image. All right. One handy tip that I'd like to show you is sometimes what happens is you press Ctrl T and then you just forget what you have to do with the image, right? That happens to me a lot of times. So say if you made some changes, say if you flipped it horizontal, you flipped it vertical, and now you're like, no, I'm not liking how this image looks, and now I want to revert it back to the original style, right? So when you are still in that free transform mode, you can just hit the escape key, and that's going to revert it to how it was before. So say if I do any warp changes, this comes in handy a lot when you are working with warp, right? You do this, and see you don't like how the result is. So what you can do is you can just hit the escape key, and that's gonna get out of that free transform mode and also revert the changes. That is kind of nice. One more thing I would like to show you is about the scale feature. So once you press Ctrl T, a lot of people do this. They do a right click and they select scale if they want to resize their image. And honestly, you don't have to do that. Scale, rotate, and skew, these three options can be done without actually selecting them here from this menu. So once you are entered into that free transform mode, you can work with the scale and rotation, and also the skew option that is there in Photoshop. So you basically don't have to select it all the time, right? And over the years, I have developed the habit of resizing by holding on the Shift and Alt key at the same time. So if you were to resize like this, you can resize in a free hand way. But if you hold on the Shift and Alt to it, you can see you are going to be resizing in proportions and to the center. Now, a lot of people get confused between this. They say that the image is resizing to the center, but what's actually happening is it is resizing to this pivot point that we have in the center. So for example, if I was to move this pivot point, say somewhere over here, right here, and now if I was to scale my image, I'm still holding on the Shift and the Alt key, you can see that the image is not resizing from the center, it's resizing to that pivot point. Most of the times, like 90% of the times, you're going to be having the pivot point right at the center. By default, it is at the center unless you move it. And I would suggest that not, kind of stay away from this because this actually can cause a lot of problems. But this can also help you a lot. Say if you want to rotate something, right? Now it's gonna, if you can see that, it's gonna rotate in a very different way. So see that's kind of awesome. So that takes care of rotation and scale. Yeah, skew. Now if you press Ctrl T, if you want to skew an image, you can just hold down the Control key, and then you can, just move your image like that. See that? That is an option of skew. You can also distort your image if you just hold on the Control key and move your mouse pointer like that. Distort actually gives you that 3D dimension feel, but it also damages the image a lot. Sometimes there are options where you can just get away from it, but most of the times I would say that stay away from this option. So if you press if you press Enter to accept the changes, you can see that I'm actually destroying my image a lot. I'm actually damaging it a lot. Next thing is perspective. Perspective is like, I honestly don't know how to explain perspective, but if you press Ctrl T and take that option over here, you can actually see how it works. So basically it is like, it joins two nodes together and then it transforms your image. So for example, do that, you'll see, it's kind of giving your image a 3D depth. You can create cool text effects with it. Let me just show you one. Press T and write in something over here. And now if I press Ctrl T on this, firstly, I think text will not have perspective to it because text is still a vector type in Photoshop. But if we were to rasterize this, now some of you may not understand what I'm talking about, rasterize type, but what I'm saying is that if you take that option, do a right click and do a right click and take this option over here, rasterize layer or rasterize text, and then you press Ctrl T, and then when you take perspective, you can kind of create cool text effects. You see that? It's kind of nice. See that? And perspective helps you create different kind of things. So that's one way to use it. Skew kind of comes in handy when you are creating shadows. For example, when I was creating the shadow of this model over here in this photo manipulation, where is that guy? See, yeah, model over here. This actually has skew applied to it. Now the bad thing is that we cannot look at the transformations that we have done to our image. So that's kind of like a bad point. Once the transformation is accepted, there is no way of reviewing what you have done. And I mean, you can press Ctrl Z again and again, but there is no way of saying that I did transfer. I did rotation, I did skew. You won't get that kind of option in in Photoshop. So that is there. And yeah, last thing I would like to say is warp. Now warp is kind of fun. Warp gives you all these different handles to work with. You can take one of these and just kind of move it around. Or what you can do is you can take any part of this image. Say I don't like the tree over here, right? And you can move it around like that. My advice to you would be to work with all these different nodes over here. You can see this where the two lines intersect. That is one, it's not exactly a node, but that's like a virtual point. Click on that and move the image like that. Now you can see we are distorting the image a lot, but sometimes you can get away with it, and this just helps you, with your work. So for example, I have this image over here, and if you see closely, now you won't be able to see it because I have reduced the resolution and the size of this image, just so you can work properly. But if you look at it properly, sorry, you can see the skyline. I mean, I don't know what to call this, but this line is not proper. You can see that the land is just going like a little, let me show you what I'm trying to say. If I pull this out, you can see that it's not exactly a straight line. You can see it just kind of goes below the sea level. And that's one thing that you can fix with warp. For example, if I go to this, if I find the correct layer, this is a mess right now. Press Ctrl T, press Ctrl T. And then if we select warp, we can kind of make this thing come up like that. See that? And hit the enter key. So you can see what I just did. I took this, maybe if I had the model, you'll be able to see this a little better. This was like this, and then I just made it like that. That's a very small change that I did, like this and like that. See that? So you can do all sorts of things with warp. Warp really comes in handy when you are doing matte painting, matte painting, speed painting, concept art, warp really comes in handy in those kind of things. Let me just give you a quick example. Say if I draw something like this, I can press Ctrl T on this, take warp, and then I can, select different options and just, manipulate the shape as I want. So this kind of comes in handy those kind of times. Just enter. And you can see what I just made out of this. So that's where warp is used. And also you can use all these this kind of shortcuts. If you press Ctrl T, you have all these shortcuts over here, like flip horizontal, flip vertical. Trust me, these shortcuts come in handy a lot of times. Like it saves you the trouble of kind of flipping it off like that. Just I can take rotate 90 degrees clockwise, and 180 degree clockwise, and that's gonna do it for me. So that's how you work with these options, I guess.